Well, hello there. How are you? Today I've already prepped my face with the Village Barber shaving oil. And my razor is going to be this old vintage three-piece Gillette, kind of a tech type razor with the plastic or Bakelite handle. And in there I have, on its third use, a Rise blade. And that's Rise Platinum, new and improved, it says. My brush is going to be this. It is the XII Shave Company Silvertip Badger brush. And my soap is going to be this, the Wild West Shaving Company's Wichita. And I've lathered up my brush, and I've used this scuttle, which I had full of some warm water. So I'm going to go ahead and try to get a lather started here. I hope you're all doing well out there. With the brush a little bit, maybe just a little bit more here. See what we can do. Yeah, I could wet that just a tad more. Pretty good lather started here. Lathered a little bit differently since this is a smaller puck. Used the small scuttle and didn't use a bowl to lather, but I think it should be just fine. These soaps usually lather up pretty well. And Russell Barton, who has this company that makes these soaps, last year, he began putting, I believe it's borax in them to make them lather even easier. So these are good soaps. If there's any problem with the lather, you can rest assured it's user error on my part. But we'll go ahead and get started here. Wet the razor just a little bit. This is actually a soap that he very kindly asked me if I'd like to go in on a soap idea and a scent profile with him, and we had talked and we came up with this, and that's available through his website, which I will link you to down below. So I'll go ahead and get started here. Pass number 1 with the grain. Well, this week, it was cold and it snowed quite a bit, or this past week, I should say. And then it got cold. Well, it warmed up, then it got cold again. And I'm in the upper Midwest, but in the extreme upper Midwest, there was talk that there could be wind chills down to 50 below zero. I'm not that far north, thank goodness. Pretty comfortable so far. Let's see, what else has happened this week? Where I am, the weather always seems to be a big factor. So if people where I am talk about the weather, they usually have something to talk about. Get my hand a little wet there. Mild to mid-aggression razor with very little overhang, by the way. From time to time, there's still a lot of these available on eBay. Some of them, and that's where I got this, some of them even have their original Bakelite cases or whatever. Sometimes even the paperboard box that came in. I'm going to read you the scent profile of this soap, since Russell prints the scent profiles on these. Let me see. Scents of bay rum, vetiver, wood smoke, coffee, and rose. The vetiver was supposed to represent, well, it's usually an Indian grass, but it's close to sort of a sweet grass that you would have here in the United States, sort of a prairie grass, I guess. And my idea, which Russell easily springboarded off of, is, or was, to have the scents that a cowboy might smell coming in off the old XII Trail into Wichita when they were driving the herds up there from Texas. So, and then it was his idea to put the longhorn steer on there. I'll set that aside for a minute, and I'll go ahead and rinse the razor. Before I commence here, I'll put up a picture of, well, it'll be a map of contemporary Wichita, and it's a smattering of suburbs there. It's the largest city in Kansas now. Started out as just another cow town on the XII Trail. The XII Trail was originally the Sedalia Trail, as Sedalia, Missouri was kind of the first cow town to where the longhorn steers were driven up from Texas. After the Civil War, there was a glut of longhorn steers in Texas, and somebody, or more than one somebody, got the idea that if those were driven north to railheads and shipped back east, the beef from those cattle would sell pretty handily, as it did. And the cow towns kept moving west. They say Abilene, Kansas was the first cow town that resembled the cow towns you would see in the old Western movies and TV shows. And Wichita, well, first Newton, Wichita, Ellsworth, Dodge City, those all became cow towns. Ogallala, Nebraska. The trail, which became known as the XII Trail, kept moving west because there was a quarantine line drawn up by the government, I guess it was. I'll show you a map of contemporary Kansas here. The trail kept moving west because farmers and ranchers that had ordinary, as in not longhorn cattle, they didn't like the longhorn cattle because the longhorn cattle carried a tick which had a virus or something that their cattle were not immune to. The longhorns were immune to that disease, whatever it was, but the ordinary cattle weren't. So that's why, if there were a map of Kansas here, you could just see the quarantine line moving west. And beyond that, the longhorn steers could be driven north. And then, of course, the railroads kept going farther west, too. Well, I'm going to pop back in for a moment, and I will commence for pass number 2 across the grain. I went ahead and transferred my lather to this Van Yulay shaving bowl. So if you're like me, and I have very hard water here, if you're like me and sometimes you have a little bit of trouble getting even a good soap to lather for you, one of these will help a lot because it's got that honeycombed interior. Usually not necessary for this soap because it's so good, but lather's getting a lot creamier here and a lot less dry because I put a smidgen of water in here, smidgen more water I should say, and yeah, that's pretty good right there. I had mostly lathered off camera during the break there, but incidentally, this brush, whoa, that's a Kansas company right there, the Kansas side of the Kansas City metro area, although they sell their product and attend trade shows all over that metro area. Here's a map of the Kansas City side of the Kansas side, I should say, of the Kansas City metro area. It's only about 1/3 the size of the Missouri side is what I'm trying to say, but it's the largest metro area in Kansas, and Wichita, which is its own metro area, is the largest city there. And I had this brush monogrammed also right there. So a couple of, actually an Oklahoma company, Russell Barton, he's down there in, let's see, Marlow, Oklahoma, and then a Kansas company there. And I thought Wichita, Kansas might be a theme here. Anyway, pass number 2 across the grain. That lather's a lot nicer right now. I flipped this blade after the second use. I don't always flip blades. Sometimes I do, just to see how it goes. See if the unused side of the blade is still viable. I even got kind of a Kansas shirt on. I don't know if you can see that. It says Walk Kansas there, from K-State, Kansas State University. There's also a University of Kansas. That's a separate system there, separate university system. K-State was the Aggie college for years and years. Kansas State University they're headquartered in Manhattan, Kansas, also known as the Little Apple, as opposed to Manhattan, the main borough of New York City. In New York City is called the Big Apple, you see. And then KU, or the University of Kansas, is in Lawrence. A lot of dying little towns in rural states like Kansas, and the cities are becoming larger as people continue to flock into the cities. There are probably, well, I know there are well over 1 million people between, say, Manhattan and Kansas City, and there's maybe a little over 600,000 down in the Wichita area. And the entire population of the state is perhaps 2,900,000. New York City proper has far more people than that in New York, the state of New York. There are something like 8 million people in New York, and that doesn't even count the many, many suburbs and outlying areas. This soap is performing so nicely, as was expected with any of these Wild West soaps. And then the scent is, I give it a scent strength of about 3 out of 5. It's just right. It's making the necessity room here smell very nice. I especially like the rose notes, rose scent of it. Did I ever, I guess I read those, yeah, I did. I read the notes, the scent notes on this. The rose, that could be a prairie rose, it could be a rose somebody was growing in town, roses, or it could be, as Russell pointed out in a video he made for this soap last year when he first started producing it, it could be that the cowboy's dancing with a saloon girl that's covered with a lot of rose water. Well, so far so good. I can't seem to talk today. and I will return freshly lathered, and we'll do that third pass against the grain. Okay, it's time for, I don't know if I might have said second pass, it's the third pass actually against the grain. And yeah, here I go. Out in the kitchen, I hope it turns out okay. I'm making some yellow split pea soup, and I've never made that before. I let the yellow split peas soak overnight. Now this camera, it seems like the picture isn't as clear as it normally is. I reset some things on the camera trying to make it so it didn't zoom in and out so much as far as trying to focus on its own, but I hope I didn't screw anything up irreparably. All right. I wonder what this program was. I got this shirt used at a thrift store, but I wonder what this program was. Walk Kansas. I guess it was trying to get people to be healthier down that way. Excuse me. Very pleasant shave. I'm going to go ahead and go to the neck area now. I thought I might have a very, very late dinner of, or I guess you'd call it supper. Supper being the late or the fourth meal, in the cases where there is a fourth meal. A very late supper. I thought I might have yellow split pea soup and grilled cheese sandwiches, something relatively simple. Probably soon need to actually turn up the heat on those split peas because I just have them kind of simmering and I think they need to boil. But I didn't want anything boiling on my stove while I was in here shaving, you see. Alright. Very comfortable shave, and it's pretty smooth so far. That's not a bad thing. Mild to mid-aggression razor, in case I didn't note that. Well, I'll come back to you and we'll do the pickups. Okay, Cal, will you do the honors? 3, 2, 1, it's pickup time, baby! Yay! Thank you. Cal, the Kurt Cardinal, silent Cal, not being so silent right now. Put him back over there. Here I go. Let's see. Nod to a certain Welshman wet shaver there, whose name I am not worthy to speak. I'll just put it that way. Oh, this blade on its third use and flipped over is not as bad as I thought it might be. only the third time I've used a rise blade. What did I do with that tuck? I'll show that to you again. And then shortly here I'll be doing recaps and putting the finishing touches on this shave here. See where I'm at here. I'm pretty impressed. I know the soap has an awful lot to do with this being a nice shave. This is a fairly mild razor too. It helps. I only had 1 day's worth of growth, and that's not much, but for me, if I let it go more than about 24 hours, if I go just a little bit more than 24 hours without shaving, I may not look like the Wolf Man, but if you get close enough to me, it will be noticeable, and I can't grow facial hair in a way that it would look very nice. If I tried to grow a beard, I'd look like a sick rat, as I'd mentioned before. Hey, great shave, enjoying this, and I'll be back, and I'll bring in our good friend Mr. Towel. Here he is. You know him, you love him, you can't live without him. That's our good friend Mr. Towel. Whew. Rinse the old face off here. Oh, pretty nice. Pretty close to BBS too. I took it a little easier down here on my lower neck there, where I get irritation rather easily. Hard place for me to get BBS without getting some irritation, even with the lightest touch when I'm shaving. Okay, well, we'll put Mr. Towel back where he goes, and I'll commence with recaps and putting the finishing touches on the shave here. Well, I started out off camera, and this may not really be necessary with this soap, but I went ahead out of habit, and because I enjoy using this, I prep my face with Village Barber shaving oil. I'm going to need to get some more of that soon. Let's see. My razor has been this 3-piece vintage Gillette, kind of a tech type razor, and has this handle which is hard plastic or Bakelite. And in there, on its third use and flipped after the second use, I had a rise blade. Okay. And my soap, well, let's see, I'll do the brush first. My brush has been this XII Shave Company silvertip badger brush out of the Kansas City, Kansas area there. Soap was Wichita shaving soap with the longhorn steer on it there. And, oh, let's see here. I put the puck from that in the scuttle, and I initially lathered up on my pretty scuttle. Had a nice warm lather there, but since I'm not always the best at making good lathers, even with a good soap like that, I went ahead and I transferred the lather to this. It's pretty foolproof. The Van Yulay, the honeycombed, got a honeycombed interior, their shaving bowl, which comes highly recommended. And let's see, did I forget anything? I don't think so, so I'll reach into magic cabinet number 2 here and get the Humphreys unscented witch hazel. And I think maybe it's possible that in this video I might have traded clarity for, well, something else here. I was trying to get it so the camera didn't zoom in and out so radically, or not zoom, but try to focus and refocus, and it kind of does that anyway. I'm kind of disappointed with the camera on this pricey new phone of mine. It's still new to me anyway, I've had it a few months. My much less expensive old phone, it had problems with the camera, but not like this, not where it kept trying to focus and refocus. Okay, so got the witch hazel on there. I'll dry my hands just a little bit. And I'm going to reach over here. I don't have any of the cologne that goes with this. There's also Wichita cologne or aftershave from Wild West Shaving Company, but I'm going to use the original Pitralon in the brown bottle because one of the scent notes of it is rose, which does go, in my experience, well with this soap, which also has notes of rose in it. So little on the wrists here, a little behind the ears, and yeah, I'm going to smell pretty good. Yeah, that's real nice, and those two things do go together well. Let's see. Oh, yes, and I had a balm. Just your original Nivea Men replenishing post-shave balm, which I like this because, as has been noted by other wet shavers, this absorbs very nicely. So I'll go ahead. So, you know, the camera's still trying to focus and refocus. I was trying to stop that, and I traded some clarity of picture for trying to get it not to focus or refocus, at least not quite so radically. Radically is what I'm trying to say. Okay, well. This is nice stuff. No parabens. And yeah, I'll be a little shiny for a minute here, but this stuff absorbs a lot better, a lot more readily and quickly than some other balms. So I'll go ahead and recap here. Well, I'll recap. Well, I guess I pretty much did. You saw the balm there. I'll hold that up again. The Nivea Men. And one more time, I'll hold up the other things here. I need to find the cap for this, but the original Pitralon was also used there. And before that, I used the Humphreys Witch Hazel. So that's it. I'm going to leave and get out of here, but I'll see you all later. Thank you for watching, and may you all have peace.